It was a time for dreamers. The late 40s, the post-war economy was booming. Life was on the verge of a technology and service explosion. Soon, every household would have at least one color TV. Who would imagine such a thing? Well, a young man named Fred Hill could. Fred was raised by his single mother, and early in life, he was bitten by the technology bug. He worked in his home's coal bin in downtown Hamilton, fixing and installing taxi radios. And Fred could not imagine how the technology boom was about to change his life and life in the Hamilton area. This is a one-of-a-kind story from the city of Hamilton. Fred Hill was a young man with an incredible imagination. He was always tinkering with electronics and dreaming up some crazy idea.
There is a little hallway going into the basement, and he rigged up something on the floor that when you stepped on it, then the music started. I don't know how he did that, but he loved that.
A curiosity to neighborhood kids, Fred Hill could be a nuisance to some of his neighbors.
He had this music going, and came out of the basement of the house, and the people at this bus stop, they loved it, but the neighbors didn't. So they complained, and he had to stop it.
Life was about to change for Fred when he met a junior at Westdale High School by the name of Lois Moore.
And I remember him coming home and saying to Mother, "I met my wife today."
He was a young man of 18 when I met him. He was very outgoing and rather flamboyant, a little bit too much for me at the time.
Eventually, Lois warmed up to Fred and even loaned him $100 to start his business. A marriage proposal soon followed, but surprisingly, the proposal would come from Lois.
We had acquired the Main Street property, and we had a place to live, and we had a refrigerator. Now that was most important in 1950 because refrigerators were very hard to come by. Husbands, not so much. They were easy to come by.
As husband and wife, Fred and Lois moved into the top floor of an old house at the corner of Main Street and East Avenue. The downstairs was reserved for the business. As the business grew, so did the family. First came Sharon, then Marcia, Robbie, David, and finally Donald.
Oh, Fred was a good family man, and the boys, they didn't know they were learning a lot probably years back. I always had the boys involved in most of the things. Sometimes they didn't want to be, but they got involved.
Running a business and a family was probably hardest on Lois. She knew she did not have as much time to spend with her children as other mothers did, so including the children in daily business affairs seemed like a good compromise.
We always enjoyed having the children with us and having them being involved, whether it was doing stapling in the office on a Saturday or doing what they could do and working in the business as they became older.
I took pride in stamping envelopes. That was one of my main jobs when I was taken into the Hamilton store by Dad.
We got all the jobs that no one else wanted, of course. The jobs pulling weeds and licking the envelopes as kids going in. We my parents would drop us off and we'd go bug the technicians and pretend we'd help them fix the VCRs or something like that.
I thought every family had a meeting Sunday morning to go over advertising. We had a group of 8 or 10 people show up, and they all talked about what ads they're going to run this week, and Mom would make breakfast, and I thought that was normal. I thought everybody did that.
Sunday morning breakfast for many years consisted of Fred Hill, myself, and Ross Robinson. I would cook bacon and eggs or something, and we would lay out the ads for the following week.
It didn't seem as though there was a line of distinction between business and work and pleasure sort of thing. It was, because a lot of work was done at home, and I suppose it didn't seem like that there in business, it was kind of a combination.
Although growing up in a family business had its downsides, with each child expected to do their part, it also had its privileges.
Well, the kids at school thought the new toys were kind of cool, you know, the new speakers and the quadraphonic sound and
VCR.
Ooh, that was pretty cool. And
Radar
Walkmans
range,
and
microwave oven,
Yeah.
radar range.
So we had the latest toys, and that was kind of cool.
Life was forever changing in the Hill family and in the business. Fred Hill continued to seize opportunity from wherever it came. Being an astute businessman, Fred knew if he was going to stay in business, he had to do what he enjoyed. You're watching The Hill Family, a one-of-a-kind story from the city of Hamilton. An entrepreneur by nature, Fred Hill took his hobbies and turned them into businesses.
And every time something new come out by, Fred had to have it. I remember when we had the first cellular phones. And before that, we had a little phone in a suitcase. And there was very few around, but Fred had to have one.
Success is no accident. Fred Hill had an instinct about what would sell and what would not, and he trusted his instincts about people as well.
Fred was smart in that he hired the right people, and I think that makes a big difference.
At the time I started working for Hills, color television would just come at the horizon, and it was an exciting time. All the knowledge we would gain from the manufacturer. There was no schools, there was no college that taught television repair.
As color television sales grew, so did the need for service. For Fred Hill, the service gap was not only an opportunity to generate revenue, but an opportunity to bring in new customers.
And Fred Hill, because he comes himself from a service background, he was very interested in having the customer happy as far as backup service is concerned.
The television boom continued throughout the 50s and 60s. In the early 70s, the service department moved to Burlington, and it became a state-of-the-art operation.
It was fantastic. We had red carpet in the customer area, glass walls. We had a picture window looking into the actual work area so that people could see how technicians. We got new test equipment.
That service department used to blow me away. You couldn't believe so many people had so many problems with television. They had them all in there fixing them.
TVs were operated on vacuum tubes. They were not very reliable. Every few months you went to the customer. You got to know the customer very personally because you saw him every few weeks to exchange another tube.
The color TV market was saturated and sales dropped off dramatically. The service showcase would be closed and moved back to the basement of the Main Street store, and this would not be the first or only mistake the company would make.
I think the computer fiasco was the worst point in the business career.
Fred Hill always in the forefront of new innovation, of new ways of improving your business, wanted a computer. Well, this thing, of course, was a complete failure. It just didn't do anything that the salesman promised. It went on, and I must say it became very serious because I think it almost bankrupted Hill TV.
We couldn't send out statements for 90 days, and it was probably another 90 days before we got the columns in the right places or the payments in the right places.
This would be Fred Hill's first and last encounter with computers. But this bad experience did not keep Fred from trying new things. And at the forefront of each new venture was a unique advertising campaign.
Fred Hill always believed, of course, that in order to be successful in business, you had to advertise. He was absolutely convinced that the success of a business depended on some successful advertising.
One of our campaigns that was exciting to do, and we spent a lot of time and effort on it, was the red pencil promotion. And we had great big pencils made, and our ads had spot red color on them with the circle around the special promotions. And when all the sales were done and we looked at the books, we didn't make $1 profit. So we chalked that up to experience, and we never say that was bad advertising, but it wasn't profitable.
They also had a campaign where they call it "Don't Bump the Boats."
And one of our customers, and it happened to be a woman, bumped into one of the boats when she was leaving the store. And as a trailer on the radio commercials, we added, "But please, don't bump the boats."
Now, we didn't sell boats because of this advertising. We sold televisions.
The Don't Bump the Boats promotion really continued on because it was so successful on radio that Fred had a Shell Lake boat cut in half.
Stuck the front half outside the display picture window and the other half on the inside. So when you drove by, it actually looked like the boat had crashed through the picture window or to the showroom window.
And afterwards, he had it glued back together, and someone bought it.
He was always thinking about how he could do something that nobody else had done in the business. Something that would be different, something that would catch the eye of the public. Even his ads in the newspaper, they were always different than everybody else's ads. And certainly his ads on radio were, because I had the privilege of doing them all.
Fred Hill was the consummate salesperson. He saw every opportunity as an opportunity to sell.
I think he was running an ad in the paper and they had a boat for sale. And so I looked at the boat and I didn't buy the boat. But he sold me a TV.
Fred must have done a good sales job because this chance encounter led to a lifelong friendship based on mutual appreciation of technology and a love of boating. But Fred Hill's true passion was photography. You're watching The Hill Family, a one-of-a-kind story from the city of Hamilton. Like most of Fred's interests, photography involved his children and his business.
5 kids, mom and dad, and even the dog would go and stand on TVs out in the middle of nowhere.
And then, of course, once the pictures were done, then we got the job of sticking all the envelopes, licking the envelopes and putting it all together.
We went up to 1,500, I think, at a time, and we'd be stuffing Christmas cards. That was part of our Christmas, usually at home.
Fred Hill's love of still photography quickly evolved to moving pictures, and remaining on the leading edge of the new technology was a priority. So Fred devised a scheme that could make his new and expensive hobby profitable, or at least help pay for itself.
He had this fantastic idea that he could actually mix business with pleasure. And so he approached his suppliers and was selling them the idea of making a record when they went on incentive trips. You probably have to remember that in the 60s, 70s, the manufacturers induced their retailers in buying merchandise by awarding points and gimmicks.
It was an idea that would take off, and documenting these trips would take Fred and Lois around the world. The 70s also saw the introduction of the home VCR and the next evolution for Hill's TV and radio.
Nobody at that time was thinking about that the VCR would become such a dramatic instrument, not only for entertainment, but also for businesses.
For business owners, the VCR meant a new dimension in security and surveillance. For Hill's TV and radio, it meant the birth of a new department, Hill's Industrial. Along with the VCR came the home video camera, and Fred used this new technology to perfect his movie-making skills. In the early 80s, he was approached to make a documentary about the Burlington Teen Tour Band.
If we're going to go on TV, we need money. So we went to DeFasco and many of the industries, but it was a recession on at the time. We couldn't get any sponsors, so he said, here's a video camera. I'll show you how to make it work. You're going to France. He told me how to take shots, how to follow the crowd, and then I would show him my tape, and he says, no, you don't do this, you don't do that. It was just a tremendous experience. He was a great movie taker.
The 80s were a time of new freedoms for Fred and Lois. The children had grown and started lives of their own.
Our business, of course, was technically oriented, service and motors and boats and all those things that the men love. So the girls at that time didn't have an interest in that type of thing other than a little office work. Well, Rob always had an interest in the photography, but David didn't show too much interest in the business initially. He was like a little sponge. Everything you said to him, he would listen and absorb it. And Donald, it took him longer. He became a welder, and he liked to travel. They've all done traveling with us and without us, and that's such an education.
Out of the 5 children, Rob was the only one who seemed to share his father's passions, particularly for the moving picture.
I think Fred Hill had in mind that the time would come when Robbie would join a business, and that was the niche that he wanted to create for Rob.
I got involved with the television broadcasting end of the business because of, in grade 6, I found that you can get out of class if you volunteer to work the projector.
Rob pursued studies in television production at Mohawk College, and with the help of his father, he made his first moving picture.
When I started doing all this film stuff, it was a natural to try to get some work, that I've done the college thing, we've used all this film, we're into film production. So Dad thought it would be a good idea for us to all work on this film. And it was the ABCs of family boating.
Fellas, I told you when you bought this boat, I let you buy it, that you were going to keep it in the garage and you're going to keep all the mess in there.
Donald had one line to say in the whole thing. The one line was,
lower unit.
And we both realized, I realized that I wanted to be behind the camera and not be associated with these two guys. And these guys decided that they better go into retail instead of going into acting.
Fred's dream of creating a niche for Rob was realized with Rob taking over Hill's production services in Burlington. David, on the other hand, started out on the sales floor. He would soon get an education in the ABCs of running a small business. Fred Hill was always the front man for Hill's TV and radio. He was the face, the name, and the man with the crazy ideas. But many give Lois the credit for the business success.
I always thought of myself as a support mechanism, and I think everyone needs support. And maybe a tree falls and the support mechanism still stands. It's surprising.
You're watching The Hill Family, a one-of-a-kind story from the city of Hamilton.
When Fred Hill passed away, it was such a shock to all of us that worked for Hills. It was just so unexpected. It was, we were going along so great. Fred Hill was probably at the height of his career. He just lived life to his fullest.
And so it was suggested that I take the presidency when Fred died. And Fred Vogel became manager.
Right away, I knew that I had to kind of take Dave under my wing, so to speak, because Dave had a lot of experience as far as selling now, and of course all the theoretical business. And so together, we started to continue the tradition of Hill TV.
Everyone just worked together, and the staff were wonderful. They didn't know when Fred died if we just closed the business or what would happen. And it was very gratifying that everyone stayed and helped. We all just helped each other.
Fortunately, Fred Hill's death happened to correspond with an upswing in the economy, allowing the transfer of power to proceed without a glitch.
But we found that when the 90s started, you really had to specialize, and you can't be everything to everybody. And people don't want to buy a home theater system with a washing machine beside it, sort of thing. So we had to make some tough decisions as to what product that we're going to carry and how to do a better job, because there's more competition coming on stream.
The big box stores and their mass merchandising was on the horizon. Profit margins would be forced to an all-time low. Competing in this new marketplace was impossible.
Where other mass merchandisers couldn't compete was on a service level. On the people level, where we could have, because we had such a tradition in service, that we had experienced people that could install things.
This is exactly what the three brothers decided to do. They went back to the company's roots and focused on a tradition started by their father. Today, Hill's TV and Radio is more of a service provider than a merchandiser.
Part of Hill's future lies in integration of systems, whether it's a home theater system or security systems for business or home application.
What we're working on now is voice activation through different areas in your home.
Hill's TV and Radio is now operated by the three boys, and they are keenly aware of what it takes to have longevity.
Now we're diversified in with the video production, with the service, with the home theater, with the retail, and it seems as though one department may be down, but the other one will be up. So, it's over the long term has really worked out well.
In the summer of 2001, the business expanded again with a new store on the Hamilton Mountain. It is sort of a showcase for whatever's new on the horizon. Interesting, the boys are on the cutting edge of new technologies, just like Dad.
Those memories are kind of like having babies, aren't they? You look at the wonderful children you have, but you forget about all the time it took to get them and the pain and the suffering. So business is kind of like that, isn't it? You go through a lot of trial, but the rewards are there.
With just a high school education, Fred Hill took a simple hobby and turned it into a multi-million-dollar-a-year business that spans a half-century.
He's left a legacy, and I think the boys appreciate their father with how hard he worked and what he did, and got a lot of respect for him.
I had such a terrific relationship with Fred Hill. I could tell him what I thought, and he respected it. I didn't have to pretend. I could be me. And what is nicer than have this type of feeling?
Was it insight, opportunity, or decades of goodwill generated by the patriarch himself, Fred Hill? Whatever it was, Fred Hill was able to capitalize on the good times and ride out the bad. Will the next generation conquer the challenges of the latest technology boom? Well, they're doing pretty well so far. Only time will tell where Hill's TV will be in another 50 years. But one thing is for sure, this is truly a one-of-a-kind story from the city of Hamilton.